Well, thanks for celebrating my birthday with me. So this is a continuation of the memory chapter. We talked about, the five things that increase memory, meaningfulness, and so forth and so on. Well, I'm going to talk about four things that inhibit affect poor retrieval. Um, the first one is fading or disuse. Fading or disuse. One's a psych term, one's a ed psych term. They're the same thing. Fading's a psych term. Disuse is the ed psych term. They're interchangeable. And what that is very simple. If you don't use it, it's gone. To give you a great example, to hope you remember this, one day I was working at the monkey lab. I hated the monkey lab at school because I fed the monkeys in cleaner cages, and they were mean, tried to bite you, throw feces at you, and I tried to explain to them that I wasn't the one torturing them for the experiments. But anyway, I was sitting down in front of the on the bench in front of the psych building, which is still there, and Fred Coolidge came by and he said, "Julian, let's get out of here. I mean, let's do something exciting." And I said, "What do you want to do?" He said, "Let's go to Waldo." Well, Waldo is a town about 23 miles northwest of Gainesville on the way to Jacksonville. And Waldo is known for the speed capital of the world, speed trap capital of the world. And the nicest building in Waldo is the jail. And I can tell you from experience, it's a beautiful building. But anyway, so we're walking around. This is Americana, right? It's Waldo Watermelon Festival. They have booths, art booths, food booths, name anything you can eat with a watermelon. Watermelon seed spinning contest. So they had a parade, they had a watermelon queen, the whole bit. And Fred turns to me and says, "You see that guy underneath that Florida maple tree?" And I go, "Yeah, well, what's the big deal?" He said, "Watch when girls walk by. Girl, and this is Florida, so they're wearing halter tops and shorts. And as a girl walked by, he propositions them. And I don't know why, this is long before the Me Too movement, I don't know why they didn't call the cops on him or arrest him or whatever. And so Fred said, "Let's go talk to him." And I said, "Why, Fred?" And he goes, "Because we're psych majors." Oh, okay. So we walked over and talked to this guy. Well, actually, Fred talked to him. And this girl walks by and he says, "You want to have sex?" I said, "Oh my God, now all three of us are going to be arrested." And Fred turned to him and said, "Why in the heck are you doing this?" And he turned to Fred and said, "If you don't use it, you lose it. And that's what fading into disuse is. If you don't use material over and over again, it fades away." Now, one of the problems with fading into disuse, it doesn't explain all poor retrieval, because there are certain things that you remember that why do you remember that? Um, you know, um, a song, words for a song, or somebody you haven't seen in years. Um, I remember I used to live in La Bonavie, or Gatortown Apartments in La Bonavie, and I lived with the maintenance man there named Weatherspoon Greer. We called him Spoon for short. And he didn't know anybody's names, but he knew everybody's by apartment. So there's 6, 7, there's 313, whatever the case would be. And so after a couple of years, he got a better job at the villages, and the villages had alphabets A through Z, 6 apartments each. And we had it was alumni weekend, and of course I was still there. I was there 10 years at Florida. So my roommates would come by because they knew that I'd still be there. And we're sitting around reminiscing, and Spoon comes in, and somebody says, "You remember those girls?" And Spoon goes, "Yeah, 131. That's 6 years ago. He's got a whole new apartment complex." But of course, if you knew the girls in 131, you wouldn't forget them. Anyway, so disuse doesn't explain all the different types of reasons for poor retrieval. The second one is reorganization or distortion. And this happens a lot in classes, because some of you reorganize, distort, omitted and illicit behavior, get them confused. And it is basically how rumors spread, because part of it is true, and then as you tell the story to somebody else, like a telephone game you used to play when we were kids, and the story gets changed and changed and changed, and that's what distortion is. It's remembering only tidbits of the situation and adding other stuff to make it whole, but it's not correct. Um, example of that is I had a teacher once told me, a friend of mine once told me, um, she said, she's talking to her kids and said, who was the 16th president of the United States? And of course, they didn't know the answer. And she says, I'll help you out. It's a city in Nebraska. And some kid raised a hand and said, President Omaha. No, that's not Lincoln. But the fact is that he knew part of it, but not all of it. I had a friend of mine who said that, and he was teaching world history, and he was talking about Joan of Arc, and they had to identify Joan of Arc. And I'm going to read you what a student wrote. Joan of Arc was a French descendant of Noah, who, after hearing angels singing "Do Re Mi," went out and fought the British. Well, some of that is true, but it's disorganized. It's not correct. So the fact is that I'll tell you a cute story about this. Um, Fred one time was married to Helen, a beautiful, beautiful woman, very intelligent, and she was going to be a nurse, and um, but she hated sports. That's great now because they're on TV. So she said to Fred when I was over at that house, she said, Fred, I want to go to the next football game. And Fred says, Helen, you hate sports. It's out in the sun. You're going to be bored for 4 hours. And she says, no, when after the school parties, um, uh, everybody is talking about who's wearing what and who's with who. Wait a second, I got to get Sophia up on the bed. And who's dating who. I want to go. So we decided to. Um, oh, come on. She decided to. Okay, she's back. We decided to teach her football 101, and we spent the next 2 weeks talking about it. So I was president of a club, Banana Club, another story, and we got great seats for the game. So we're at the game, and here comes Helen, a beautiful sundress, sits down. John Reeves goes back, takes a 7-step drop, takes a little stop and go, and Carlos Alvarez takes off. Throws the ball 35 yards down the field. Al Colorado just catches it in stride, runs into the end zone. And Helen gets up and goes, home run, home run. And of course, Fred picked her up and just scored her out of the stadium. Whoops. She knew something happened, but it wasn't the right thing. The other one is repression or suppression. And this is forced forgetting, when you don't want to remember something. You forget about when homework's are due, or when tests are supposed to be due, or when the dentist would do, because you don't want to remember it. It doesn't have to be a terrible event, like a car accident. It can be something you just don't want to do. So you forget to invite somebody to a party because you really don't want to invite them. So it's forced forgetting. And, when I used to be in the education department, I always forgot about the education meetings because they were so boring. They got me anyway. But anyway, that's forced forgetting, repression or suppression. And the last one is interference. And interference is when information disrupts other information. So we have two types of interference, proactive and retroactive. Proactive, you have your little word list. Proactive is when old information interferes with new. Pro athlete, played a long time. Retroactive is new information interferes with old. R, rookie, new, one way to remember it. Proactive example would be those of you who are equestrians, those of you who are athletes. You sometimes do what your old coaches tell you to do rather than what your new coaches tell you to do. And what happens when you start playing bad? You go back to the basics. Proactive. So that's when old information interferes with new. So those of you who have taken the oral tests, you're going to have a lot more information and confuse you because of, but if you still remember chapter 5, part 2, that's proactive. Retroactive, on the other hand, is when new information interferes with old. You don't know the old code on your building because the new code. You don't know your old license plate number because the new license plate number. You don't know your old cell phone number because the new cell phone number. So that is retroactive. So I always tell this kind of joke, it's just like saying with your significant other and you're next to a fireplace, laying on a nice soft rug, eating cheese, drinking wine, and you whisper your old boyfriend's name. Oh, proactive interference. Hardly cause more than interference, but so proactive, always interfering with new, new interfering with old. Okay, if you have any questions, just give me a call, and we'll talk. We'll do another one tomorrow.